panel is officially called Social TV, Where's the Money? And we got about 45 minutes. We've got a great panel. I'm Jeremy Toman. I run a company called Digit. We make an app called NextGuide. We are basically, thank you very much, we're basically aiming to solve discovery in the infinite channel lineup universe. We have an iPad app that you can download called NextGuide, and we have a bunch of social features, and so we play a little bit of a role on the social side. I'll be moderating, participating a little, keeping us lively, having some fun, and if it all fails, I'll start juggling or something. But with me, we have three great speakers. I'm going to ask them to each introduce themselves for about a minute or so, and then we'll just dive right in. So, Alan, why don't you kick us off?
Well, good morning, everybody. Thanks, Jeremy, for having me here. I'm Alan McLennan. I have a company up in San Francisco called the Patam Group, Pure Advanced Digital Entertainment and Media. Been around 6 years. What we do is we work with companies all over the world in this particular environment, but also in second screen applications and the evolution of, shall we call it, television onto multiple platforms. And that also means ratings, rankings, technology, and the like. So there's going to be a lot of questions and discussions, I have to think, around social television, because this is something that has yet to really been embraced here in the U.S., but is definitely having some interesting applications around the rest of the world. I was the original founding president of Rentrack, AMI division, and first CD-ROM game called Lion King back in the 90s, and first on-demand system, first underlying foundation and technology for the media center for Microsoft. So a little bit of history, but a lot of knives and arrows in the backs, too. So,
thanks, Alan. Erin?
I'm Erin Gargan. I'm the president of a small social media and PR firm in Laguna Beach, California. And I really started my career with Sinclair Broadcast Group, selling spots and dots as an ad sales rep. So I feel the pain points of the household ratings and the demographics and how that business model is now shifting. From there, I worked for a company that was building early days social networks around global trade shows. So one of our largest clients was NAB. I'm sure a lot of you have been attendees or exhibitors at that particular trade show. We started trying to figure out ways to connect exhibitors with their most highly targeted attendees. And then LinkedIn came out, and we weren't that original anymore. So I then moved more into the social space. I've worked with a couple pretty exciting brands creating enterprise-level social media strategy, combined with creative PR, and even done some painful media buying. So it's my hope today that we can explore what's happening with social TV, how you can integrate it into your production strategies, into your marketing plans, into your full suite of everything you're doing regarding streaming digital media, and that we can, again, have some fun and hopefully learn.
Thanks.
Hi, my name is Pete Scott. I work for Turner Sports. It's part of the Turner Broadcasting family. Reside in the great dry state of Georgia today. And we operate and manage a bunch of sports digital rights, from NBA to NCAA. We participate with Major League Baseball on some of our TV deals. And I have this great job of basically looking out, getting on my horse and seeing the new technologies that are out there that we try to integrate into our day-to-day brands and try to find a positive ROI, positive efficiencies in operations. And one of the things I can definitely tell you, every single sales deck that comes across my desk, because sales guys are always asking, Pete, I need that bright, shiny gold object that can close this deal. Can we check the box in social, and what can we do in social to basically generate more revenue? So it's very, very, very important to our business to drive multi-million-dollar deals to have that component. Now the key is hopefully we'll discuss that today, is what you guys need is a sort of as a tool chest to go back to each one of your bosses and say, this is what I think we should be doing, and leveraging to try to get more ad dollars, to get more eyeballs, to get more people integrating with your brands.
Great. So I'm going to jump right into the heart of social TV as a question, which is I'm going to ask each of you, and I think I'm very curious to the answers, and I'll see if I can make a summary at the end. Quick answer, maybe a minute or less. What is social TV? What does it mean to you? How does maybe you yourself or you define it from an industry perspective? And Pete, I'm going to put you up to the task first.
So I'm blessed. I was telling Alan just quickly, sports is all about tribes, and I think news is about tribes. And what I mean by that is that everybody has a favorite team, everybody has a favorite allegiance to something. And what I view as social TV is the ability to take those allegiances and those people and those tribes and bring them together, to basically bring them around the campfire, and the campfire being a live sporting event. So it's the most important thing that we've done with Turner is we've basically injected tweets inside of all of our broadcasts. We did that last year, integrated it into our production, and had all of our producers and talent participate with that. And what that has done is it's stimulated the conversation around our show, and it's basically allowed us to sort of be very social relevant to everybody. There's a whole bunch of companies that are starting to track the social sort of metric and what's important. And what we're finding is that if you inject it and make it part of the conversation and use it as a production piece inside your shows, it's going to make your show more relevant to more people. And again, I have that luxury of tribes. So for me, the social TV is basically bringing those people around the campfire, that live experience, and trying to leverage that as much as we can.
All right. By the way, so Pete mentioned some of the companies looking at some of the analytics. Unfortunately, Mark from Trender was supposed to be here, but I think he's learning how to swim. So, but we wish them all the best back on the other coast. So, Erin, what do you think? What is social TV?
Yeah, I think I'll kind of start by just asking a quick question to everyone here in the audience. How many of you, raise your hand, have discovered a new show from your social networks? Anyone? Show of hands? Yes? A few?
Wait, I want to modify Erin's question. Now, you might have done it offline too. Raise your hand. So, in other words, a friend told you about the TV show?
There you go.
There's a lot of people checking email still.
And then a show of hands. How many of you have actually tweeted or texted while you're watching television on your couch? Okay, cool, a lot of hands. How many of you have checked in using a social TV app? Anyone? Are we, okay.
Does it count if you made the app?
Yeah, if you made the app, it doesn't count, no. So a little bit less. Now, I guess the final question is, how many of you, while you're watching television and you're texting and tweeting and possibly using awesome social TV apps, how many of you have then gotten off the couch, logged onto your computer, and purchased a product or a service because you saw a TV commercial? No one, right? So what I'm seeing here is there's a clear disparity between consumer behaviors and engagements and how we're monetizing them. So there's definitely a chasm to be crossed with that. And I think what's interesting is when you look at the behaviors around social TV, it's extremely similar to the sharing behaviors on any other social media strategy, right? So one of my girlfriends is the chief scientist at Bitly, like the link shortener. And what she said is it's interesting that what people are looking at is not always what they're sharing, right? So you may be looking at sexy Halloween costumes and adult entertainment and cute puppies and kittens, which are the top 3 most looked at URLs across the whole internet, right? But they're not the top 3 most shared. What are the top 3 most shared are, Forbes, how to be successful, top 10 ways to be more, efficient, politics. Because people want to appear a certain way to their trusted network, right? So in talking about social TV, we have to think about the type of content people are going to be most inclined to discuss and what's going to be emotional for them to want to either share to their friends or to share to that subculture of strangers who happen to like the same show that they do. Because people's taste in television, it's like snowflakes, no two are the same, and the highest rated shows are not always the most social shows. So I think when you're looking at that, it's about figuring out, what's going to make people talk to their friends about a show? Is it going to be a character breakup, a plot line, what's exciting, what they're angry about? Or what's going to have them engage with someone on Twitter that they don't know, but who's also a fan of the random geeky sci-fi show that I don't watch, but I'm sure plenty of people do. And I think that there's something we see where it's almost like that spontaneous connection between 2 people that are connecting over a show, and then maybe they never even connect again on social. It's almost like social media one-night stand. You know what I mean? It's like we're feeling it, we're watching this, it's amazing, it's happening, and then we never really engage again. And that does happen a lot with a lot of the social TV. So I think it's something where we have to figure out kind of what are the behaviors, how do we capitalize on them, and ultimately, how do we leverage some of these data insights to make better content, more entertaining shows that are fun to watch and facilitate social connections.
Great. Alan, your take on social TV? Sexy Halloween
I had a big
costumes.
coffee.
Start with
sorry.
sexy Halloween costumes.
I was cold.
The audience picked up with that one.
Sexy Halloween costumes.
Well, first of all, to me, it's an oxymoron. Social television is, what I'm listening to, and particularly what Pete said is, it's a community-centric exchange. And so is it really social television, or is it just another social network that's connected to a programming metaphor? And in that particular instance, that comes down to me, what social television is an exchange of ideas within a community to be able to explore and navigate to new types of programming that each one shares. So it's more, social television to me is more of a navigational tool, and in that being able to connect and facilitate that community's interest in programming. That means advertising. That means raising of ratings, rankings, being able to connect that out into the marketplace.
All right. So as I heard you guys talk, I think one of the themes that came out, which I think is important as a little bit of a takeaway, is you hear a lot from the quote social TV industry around the emphasis on everything's about live and check-ins and real-time tweets and hashtags and things like that. And I think what I just heard didn't necessarily line up with that kind of more popular definition. I think we heard a little bit more about community engagement. That was kind of a common theme, which I agree with a lot. I'm a fan of the show The League. I'm on season 3, right? The live one, season 4. So the last thing I actually really want to do is engage with anybody live about that show. For all I know, they've already revealed who wins the next season or this, that, or the other. And you imagine that with shows like Walking Dead, right? Walking Dead is basically every episode's a spoiler. You can't possibly want to know about the next episode. So, when you see communities forming or the spontaneous ones forming, I want to move the conversation and force you guys to talk about from a slightly different perspective. We've talked mostly about Twitter here. Where does that all live within Facebook, which we know outpaces Twitter on literally 100-to-1 ratio? So where's the Facebook element of these things? And have you guys seen things working, happening, interesting, et cetera?
I think for me, Twitter is sports. Sports is so perishable, right? So tonight, we open the season on NBA, and, Dwight Howard and Steve Nash will be playing right down the road, and he'll make a shot in the first quarter. But if I don't get that shot out to as many people as fast as I can, then it's perishable, because in the second quarter, Steve Nash or Dwight Howard shoots the next shot and becomes even more perishable. So for me, I lean more towards Twitter because of the quick response based on the live experience that we talked about. Well, and I think, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, so I want to push on that a bit.
Yeah.
So I live in San Francisco, so we obviously had a pretty good Sunday.
Yeah.
I've got to say, it couldn't have been 5 minutes from the end of the game before the first thing on my Facebook feed that had literally 4,500 likes before I even saw it. Mm-hmm. That was I've never seen anything. Anyone else here from the Bay Area? Any of you follow any of the Giants stuff on Facebook or Twitter real time or close to it? Look, I'm not even a baseball fan. It was awesome. All right. Well, so is it also, is it lack of tools also? Because I know that Facebook's a little bit more closed to the outside world.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the barrier of entry for sports, I think Twitter usually sort of surpasses that in a lot of different ways. I think Facebook sort of provides a little more time after to contemplate about the moment. So maybe that's why it worked for you, where the game's over, I'm psyched, I'm going to go celebrate with the Giants, I'm going to go out, and sort of you have a little more time to sort of think through your thoughts. And sort of for sports, that's where it sort of leans to. And I think, Facebook sees this as an opportunity as well, right? They're trying to sort of integrate, find TV people, bring them into their culture at Facebook, and figure out ways that they can bring this sort of these groups together.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually pulled my personal Facebook community. I'm not super popular, but I do have over 1,000 friends. And
that's super popular.
That's pretty popular.
Yeah, I don't want to brag, but I think I'm
brag. That's a humble brag.
Yeah, so only about 10 of them do I see on a real basis in real life. But I think what was interesting when I asked my community of guys on my Facebook page, I'm like, what is up with you guys and sports and Twitter and Facebook? You won't talk about anything else but sports on social media. And my friend Christian, who's from the Bay Area, said that he is convinced he missed at least 2 innings when all is said and done of the Giants game because he was just on his newsfeed liking every single Giants status update that he came across. So I don't know if it's the lifespan of a tweet versus a post. A lifespan of a tweet is a minute, 2 minutes, depends on how often you scroll. Lifespan of a Facebook post, about an hour, maybe 2 hours. So Twitter is more, to Pete's point, it's a real-time microblogging, on-the-go, completely mobile experience. Whereas people do still have that desktop component with Facebook where they are goofing off at work on their PC or their Mac. I don't know anyone that really tweets from a desktop. So it's either the lifespan or just the frequency. Like you can tweet 8 or 10 times and no one thinks you're psycho. If you post more than 2 or, I would say 2 max daily Facebook updates, people are like, you need to get a life. It's just not as frequent of a publishing. So I think another thing with the Facebook versus the Twitter is with the whole social media blackout issue that we're talking about. I know that I personally will not check any social media when Gossip Girl was on because I'm on the West Coast now. I'm from the East Coast. So my whole community is talking about what happened with like Serena and Blair. And I'm just like, I don't want to know. I want to tune in. So my question, I think, is will the idea of social TV bring people back to watching, live TV because they don't want to have the spoilers that we've been talking about with Jeremy. So
I'm going to stay on that theme. That's actually one of my key topics here. Is I won't go into any of the companies focusing on it just yet, but pretty much most of the energy from social TV industry to Hollywood right now is get people doing social stuff, and they'll start watching live TV again.
Right.
Alan, you've been around the block a couple of times.
It's you're really starting to identify, and Twitter is fantastic, and it's really a great tool for being able to exchange information quickly and confidentially and somewhat anonymously. It's really strong. But when it comes to the Facebook, Facebook is definitely looking at putting together some sort of video. They have their movie distribution platform, and they also are being able to engage those within the communities and getting back to the communities. That's worldwide. Facebook is one thing, but in other countries, Roku, different things that are currently Noka in Turkey, they're able to really share a lot of social interactions via their video streaming, their television offering. And India, Mumbai, Zombies in the UK, these are programs that are actually engaging the viewer on an ongoing basis live at that moment within their social network, not so much on a Twitter exchange. And from that then allows the advertisers to get involved as far as who is seeing and what they're seeing and target the advertising back to them. So your question as far as Facebook, Twitter, as far as a social television component and looking at video and looking at any kinds of initial streamed content, Facebook has an upper hand on that.
Okay. So now, thank you. Now going back to the live TV.
Social networks like Facebook Path,
So going to the live TV element, and Pete, I'm going to force when this question hits you, you can't talk about sports for a second.
Okay, fine.
Because look, we all know sports is about live anyway.
Yep.
So, Alan, you've worked with Hollywood over your career. Hollywood makes the most money off live television. The social TV, the social TV engine effectively is, as far as I can tell, selling fear into Hollywood to get them to adopt social as their platform to keep people on live. Do you think that's working, going to work, not going to work?
I'm not sure if I agree with that fear. Let's step back and look at the actual architecture of what we're talking about here. It's more device-centric, more platform, versus it is actually the fear of eroding any kind of viewership within the entertainment community. Bottom line of it is what is television? What is the definition of TV? And where is it going to be viewed and what is it going to be viewed on? And consequently, whether it's a television that's on the screen or whether it's your device, your PC, your phone, whatever it might be, that in and of itself is enabling you to receive, or they're able to receive the profile of what you're watching it on. That profile is actually more important. Is it an erosion? I think it's only an erosion from any, or fear from anybody that really hasn't been around the block, as you said, to really take a look at the programming, the consumer. We're a little slow to adopt activities here in the United States versus other parts of the world, and that are really needing content. And so if you provide content, you've got a viewership base. To provide that content, then, as Pete says, there needs to be a an ability to share that excitement, that information at that moment. So you right away moved away from the television. Now you're on a different type of device. Mm-hmm. So the big caveat there is really questioning how are you going to enable or how are you going to empower the ancillary devices that are available to you to complement the television programming in and of itself, if that answers your question.
It does, but I want to keep on my thing for a second. I'm going to be obstinate because I like doing that. So
you and I enjoy those kinds of conversations.
So research has shown in DVR households, DVR viewing is still under 50% of all viewing, but massively on the rise. In non-DVR households, most TV watching is obviously live. Catch-up TV via streaming, specifically Netflix, massively on the rise, over 1 billion hours a month right now, none of which is live. So with all of those stats, if I were to play a little bit of a future projective person, the one thing that is decreasing of TV watching is live. And that seems to be a set fate.
It's a participatory action.
Well, so Erin, we brought up Gossip Girl.
Agreed.
Right.
So Gossip Girl, and I think another...
Would you watch live, I presume?
Yes.
Live or DVR an hour later live?
Well, DVR an hour later.
Okay.
Yeah.
So can social get you to watch it live?
I don't know.
You like the social.
No, I know. I think the question is like, what's the triangle between live TV, the DVR, and the Hulus and all that kind of stuff, and then the social TV. So it's kind of like this triangle of different ways you're going to consume the entertainment that you love, right?
Yep.
So I think a great example to explain how this is evolving, to your point, is America's Next Top Model. So America's Next Top Model is, obviously it's on TV, so you can tune in and watch it live and see Tyra, whatever. Or you can go and watch it on Hulu, where on Hulu, they encourage you to go onto your Facebook or Twitter and vote for who you think is the best top model, who's the next top model. So now it's like, there's a live TV show, but I'm watching it on Hulu. But then they want me to go to Facebook, which I'm already talking to my girlfriends about it on Facebook and Twitter anyway, so it's a natural progression, right? And then what's happening on social is now that part of the show, the actual show format is being shaped and molded, because now not only is it the judges' opinion of the models, but now they have their social media score, which plays into the competition as well.
Sure, but keep in mind what you're doing is actually not what Hollywood wants.
Right.
Hollywood wants you live.
Agreed.
Period.
Agreed. And that is the business model for television. It's watch it live when it comes on. That's how the sales reps are selling the demographics and the household ratings and all this stuff. But ultimately, I think that they need to evolve the way they're packaging and presenting advertising from a traditional model of household ratings and demographics to a more interest-based model, using social data like, I wish the guy from Trender was here. I'd love to know, besides volume, how are they surfacing the most relevant conversations to drive those business insights, right? So whether it's what are they talking about, what's their sentiment in the conversations, and who are they? Are they stay-at-home moms? Are they publishing off of an Android device or an iPhone? All this data is going to ultimately be able to impact not only the content creators in Hollywood, but the way the networks make their money and how they're positioning their advertising.
Pete, can I jump in there for just a second?
Yeah.
I think that's really key here. Live events, in comparison we were talking about beforehand, I'll roll from there. The X Factor numbers on the social networks are through the roof, whereas The Voice is very low, but The Voice's ratings are very high. So from an advertiser standpoint, it's very key. So which is more valuable? You ask that question. And obviously The Voice is more valuable. Ratings, rankings, this key. All of the elements that we're talking about right now really is lovely, but without some sort of way to put a value on who's watching or participating, it's really not. In other parts of the world, they have definitely figured out how to put that together, but they're still struggling with a viable rating system, which then leads to the next point, and that is the advertisers. Advertisers are pretty slow. There's really nothing that has changed in the advertising community for probably 25 years as far as how media is bought, how it's viewed, and how it's viewed. So we are with Mark and with Trender. There's some very interesting products and companies that are doing some tremendous data analytics. There's some tremendous products out there that are starting to help facilitate that information from a data feed standpoint. OpenTV has a great product that's in the marketplace as far as advanced advertising to be able to allow that. You've got the ability within the video components of the companies starting to actually put together short-form videos posting to create interest in the networks in of itself. And that's like WeVideos being able to put together these cloud-based activities and collaborating. There's all kinds of elements here that are coming into play. Bottom line of it is who's watching? And how much is that value there, and then across the platform.
So
I know Turner's doing some very interesting things.
After Pete, if someone from the audience has a great question, I'll come looking for someone out there, or we'll just keep it going. But Pete,
So it's one day we have to prove that the social engaged audience is potentially more valuable than the rating, in the sense of, does that person share that product with multiple friends? Does that force people to go to the store and actually buy it off the shelf? And I think what we try to do across Turner is just participate in the conversation, be viable touch points so that people can access and talk about that conversation. And if it can work that an advertiser feels like a social active audience is more important to them than the rating, and sometimes that's the case in some cases, we're going to leverage that. But we, as all programmers, have to make it, I think, really easy for our fans and fandoms and tribes to basically participate with those shows the easiest way that we can. Because I think that way, I would argue, we talked about appointment viewing. We're still talking about appointment viewing. Like you said, that's where they make their money. They want everybody to sit down at 8 o'clock and watch the show. But, I know in my household and others, people don't do that anymore. And I think it's interesting that model is still going that way. So it's our job to figure out a way that we can show these advertisers that, look, there's more value than just getting everybody to sit down at 8 o'clock and watch it. There's this sort of long tail strategy that can make your brand participate with all the wonderful, themes and shows and all those different things. It's an ideal world, I get it, but that's where I think we all should be trying to do that.
let me actually.
We got to jump in on
Sure.
that. I would agree. It's our responsibility to help prove out what is the value around all of this, and make it compelling. I just have a question. You asked a question. Are there any agencies in the audience? Is there anybody from an ad agency here?
Content creators? Who's here?
Okay, who makes content?
Media buyers?
Wait, not at the same time. They can only have one. They can only raise two. Content owner and/or creator. Okay.
Content creator,
Distribution.
okay.
If you're on the distribution side.
Okay.
Pure technology in some way, technology enabler. And is there a big category I missed that someone feels is misrepresented?
CDN distributor, yes.
All right. So I do want to.
The reason why I want to ask that is that there isn't anybody, and so from an advertising standpoint, here we're having this discussion. The value proposition is there, but yet there's no one, at least kind of exploring a little bit of this discussion. Well, and that's rather key to me.
So we've gone out and engaged. We've talked to all the major agencies about what we're doing, and on our side, when we go and have those conversations. At the end of the day, first of all, the volume matters tremendously. So, whether we all like it or not, Nielsen is currency. And that's the truth, right? Nielsen is the gold standard. So, when a show like The Voice, or was the X Factor gets 1.2 million tweets, we don't yet have a benchmark to understand what that means versus a Nielsen point.
Right.
We don't know if that matters, right? So, when we're looking at our stats, we sit down with the agencies, show them our product, talk to about things. They are open to experimenting. I will say that they are hands down like, well, what would happen if we did this or X or Y or Z? The problem as I see it is that, and this is what my cautionary tale anybody else here is with a startup is, we're not going to take their money right now. And the reason is I don't want to burn that bridge for later, because when I do come back and I can understand that, 1 million social engagements equals a thing, then I can turn that into something that's bankable in revenue, as opposed to now where it's like, I'll give you 1 million tweets for 1,700 likes for 3,300 check-ins, and at the end of the day, we'll just call it even with one poker chip. It's like.
What's interesting about what you're talking about is the fact that, although the social activity is such a small percentage of the viewership, so if you look at the viewership, it's X million viewers, and maybe they're saying, oh, the social component's maybe 1% of that audience, right? But a key thing to keep in mind from a just a general social marketing standpoint, is that a foundational understanding of social media is that it's the 80-20 rule like anything else in life. So you have literally 20% of the social media users that are out there creating 80% of the content. So 80% of the social media world are just voyeurs. So what is the value of maybe that 80% seeing the tweets about the show? You know, the diehard fans, yeah, mobilize them, get them to promote your show, but what is the value beyond that? And I would even argue further that as content creators, you're really sitting at, you're in a tough place because you're sitting at the intersection of creativity and technology, and that's a tough place to straddle. So I think, you know, figuring out ways to make those data-driven social behavior decisions and weaving them into the content you're creating is going to be who wins in this space.
Jeremy, real quick, the one thing that has happened, because we want to monetize social TV.
Well, I was actually going to come back to you.
There's a ton of marketing dollars, right? So what happens with us is when an ad sales deal goes in, you basically can leverage marketing dollars that otherwise weren't there or part of the pie, right? So now we're leveraging the fact that if you can show the value of driving more likes to a sponsor's page by using your content to aggregate more people on their behalf, that becomes a wonderful opportunity for us to now get money out of two buckets.
Can you do you have any, like a case study you're allowed to share? Driving shoe sales from NBA footage or something?
Well, I don't have a case study, but they're indexed now where we're working with advertisers to see how we can leverage our content to drive more people to their Facebook pages. So let's just say we're working with Coke, and Coke has 100 people on their Facebook page. How can I show them by putting NCAA highlights on the Coke page or putting basketball highlights on the Coke page? I've created more likes from 100 to 1,000. What's the value to Coke for that delta of 100 to 1,000 that we can figure out to monetize and say, hey, I brought now 1,000 more people to the Coke brand. They're in your wheelhouse. You do what you need to do with them from here.
But not just 1,000, you've also brought the friends of fans.
Yep.
So how do we market to that? That's the money,
Take it
right?
a different direction.
So I also think that, to Pete's point, a big question in social is figuring out, once we do have that value, I mean, you can either do it two ways. One way, with some of my clients, I actually put a dollar value with likes, right? So what's the value of a like? What's the value of a click? We work backwards from account creations. It's not a perfect science, but ultimately we have a number that we can provide to the C-suite at the end of the month and say, this is the general value that we think our social efforts have brought to the business, based on account creations, that value to the business, and working backwards from all referring traffic from social sites. A lot of holes in that theory, but at least it's something, right? So, go ahead.
It sounds better than Madoff math.
What's Madoff? Yeah, right. But maybe not.
Not as good as.
It gives us something.
Somewhere in between.
I want to dial back for just a second and talk about, just from brainstorming and creative discussion here. And I really want to play off what Pete is saying. You know, what's the value here? You know, there's a lot of one-to-one communication, posting, here's a comment, here's a comment, here's a comment. Community-centric activity is really key in the evolving of this particular category. You know, a few years ago, I did a television series in Africa with phones called Africa Diary. Sundance Channel will put it on in the second quarter of 2013. It was all dealing with children in the community. They were putting stories together, they were posting it, they were sharing it, but the one fact of what happened was all the viewing in those communities, in those villages, were in the evening where television programming took place. Had very little connection. Community, groups. What's very interesting that's being left off the table, it seems like, when I keep hearing, is the value of that community, not just from an advertising standpoint, but potentially where the lower rated programs play. And let me get to this point. Discovery Networks, History Channel, these are educational channels that actually have very interesting programming, and they want to engage their viewers in an exchange to help advance education. And while entertainment is the big, precious commodity that we all look and love, education in the social community is extremely valuable because what starts happening within that, and that's social television / if you want to put it that way, education. You have a lot of mentors starting to come out, just people participating, taking attraction to individuals. Maybe that's not the right word. Taking interest to particular students that want to play. So the value of social television is really the definition of television. And whether it's entertainment, whether it's sports, or whether it's education. And I think one thing that's not being discussed and should be discussed is the ability to use these platforms for the advancement of education, exchange. So just the creative brainstorming there. I was just listening to a lot of points.
Fair point. I do want to, we're going to start running out of time. Is there any burning question out there? Because I'm happy to turn it out to you guys, or I'll keep us going.
That light is so bright.
Nothing burning. Oh, right there.
I'd like to hear from you guys, how do you see second screen devices attached to what is social TV?
Sure.
You have a page, and I am talking about second device, not just opening my Twitter account, right? More like an application developed by the company.
Sure. So the question, so everyone can hear it in the recording, is how does second screen offerings play into all this? Where does that affect, or where's the monetization, et cetera? I'm going to open with one statement. I think there's some clear paths. The people who own the content will make money off the second screen. The networks will make money off the second screen. Twitter and Facebook will make money off the second screen. I think we can all say, I don't know what the breakdown will be, but those are safeties. Who else is out there that's going to make money? And let's define the second screen specifically as an engagement platform that a consumer uses while watching a show. Mm-hmm. So you're watching a show, and you pull out either a phone or a tablet and do something related to that show. Mm-hmm. It's not, for example, my app would not count in that category. I'm in Discovery, so we're not there. But you've got anything from GetGlue to Zbox, Vigil, and a few others. Thoughts?
Lots.
Sure.
Sports.
We're going to run out of time, so let's keep the answers quick.
Okay.
I'm sorry I'm a sports guy on all this, but we just finished Major League Baseball postseason, and we had an app called Social Dugout. And the idea was the app is you download it and play along with the telecast. So we had sort of this model where we had predictive questions, batters about is at the plate, he's going to hit a single, home run, et cetera. We also had a chat functionality with that as well. We also had a component was like a Wikipedia for sports. So as different conditions were going on in the game, I can't put every stat that I want on the first screen, so I can put complementary stats on the second screen. So I think all of us as sort of producers, technologists, whatever it may be, is we want to enhance the experience through the second device. And I think for us, it was exciting, right? We've done a lot of predictive gaming within Turner Sports. We plan to do a lot more because this is where we think people will go in the future when they watch a sporting event. They can sit back, open a beer, watch the game, or have this complementary device, sort of like what you do with IMDb when you're watching a movie. I stop and I say, who's that beautiful actress? She was in this other movie. But I think it's all of us to figure out what components that we know that we would love to put on the first screen, but because our producers, the time frame, whatever it may be, can't do that.
So I want to, I don't want to keep you with it, or I'll move to your end, but I want to shift the slight way of answering this. Mm-hmm. So I know that Turner's going to make money off second screen with sports. That's pretty obvious. And I think they'll do it with some of your other content. Okay. I think I want to shift to, and Alan was reminding me to tell stories. So USA Network's doing a great job with some of their content. Psych in particular, seeing an uplift of 12% of their viewing.
And it's a second screen offering. But it's really fantastic.
They own the content. You guys own the content. Mm-hmm. Who else is in play? Is there room for anyone else? Is there third-party providers? Are there other things that will find their ways in the mix here, or not?
I think if someone can figure out how to do one thing really well in that space, because what I'm seeing with all these apps is that, like, I'm in the industry and I can't keep track of all these apps. I mean, it's just so saturated. GetGlue, yeah, I know they're claiming that for scripted television shows, they're outperforming Twitter in terms of the engagement and all this stuff. I don't know if that's true or not, but what I will say is, I mean, Instagram makes pictures cooler. Facebook, hang out with my friends. Yelp, find a restaurant. Like, find one thing that you do really well and deliver against it. I also will say that, I don't know if anyone here is associated with, like, The Good Wife, that show. You guys have seen it, obviously. Is anyone here
so,
from that? Anyone?
Yeah.
I mean, fantastic. But one thing that I found very interesting but it's kind of what you're talking about, where they do on the content, is that they have the writers telling people why they made decisions about the breakup or the character development. And the showrunners that are listening to social data to that extent that they're even giving you the behind-the-scenes value, creating some kind of an app that can maybe aggregate, behind the scenes, writer feedback, something like that, I think would have a lot of value. It has a lot of engagement thus far. So.
They have an app for that's called the Unicorn. It will never exist.
Okay, I'm going to jump
It's
on.
impossible to create one generic platform that'll work. It just won't work.
It just won't work.
Yeah.
You guys will always want a slightly better Turner optimized sports experience. The Good Wife producers will want a Good Wife optimized.
Agreed.
And there's no way to hand that off to some third party and
Yeah.
say, please own my content and do as good a job as I would. I've talked to too many people on your side of the table, and they don't trust. There's no, because we all have our own interests, right? We can't. It just can't work.
Yeah, it needs to be very relevant.
What's really something to keep in mind with Pete and the sports. One thing about sports is that it's demographically open. It's from 12 to 54 to 64. It's when you're a sports fan, you participate at an equal level, which makes it a very interesting community in and of itself. So I want to make sure that keeps out there. But second screen, real quick. There's the products that are out there right now in the food chain that are really taking over, and it's very strong. It's like Z-Box in the UK is doing a fantastic job. A lot of buy-in here in the States with Comcast.
There's a difference between industry push and consumer pull, and I've yet to see the consumer pull of any of this stuff.
I would agree. And the
So
back end,
doing well is a specific definition of they've struck good deals.
there's an exploration going
No,
on.
not on Z-Box. They've struck good deals.
They do
but-
struck great deals.
Yeah, but
So-
I've yet to see consumer activity.
Right.
And talking to people at the studios, they're not seeing it either.
But Sky's had some really solid traction within like Zombies. I mean, that's really a strong social community within Zombies because, again, they're all sharing the fear of the programming element.
But it's the promoted social content versus the organic social content, and that's where I think that the discrepancy lies.
Pete, you wanted to jump in on it.
Well, I just want to say, I was about to bring up Z-Box too.
Please.
There was a reason why Comcast and NBC wanted to invest, wanted to invest in them was because I think, quite frankly, they probably weren't as skilled to do it themselves, right? I would argue, you know what, let's let these guys go play with it. They have a track record in Europe. Let's bring them here.
Right.
I think there is something to be said. Let's go to one central location
Yeah, I agree.
so I can watch all my shows and have a fun experience each way. But I think at the end of the day, if it's not integrated into the telecast and it's somehow not, it can't be peripheral. It's got to be in the show, and the producer's got to be thinking that way. Conan's done a good job so far with our Synced app on ACR. But there has to be that connection. If you're sitting on the peripheral trying to get in, it's just going to be much more difficult for you to do things.
I hear what you're saying with it. Again, I think a generic platform will never be more than generic, and that's the problem. Is that when I talk to people who make shows like Game of Thrones, the attention to detail, it's never going to be good enough for them to not want their custom crafted app. So maybe there's room in the middle tier of content. This gentleman has a question. This will be our last question. We'll have very short answers, please.
All right, and it's actually a follow-up to what Pete said, what you said, Jeremy. I'm Kshitij, by the way, from Kalki. And Pete, you mentioned that the second screen has good traction. From what I've seen so far, though, what's the monetization story on that? I mean, HBO Go, no money, lots of stickiness. TV Everywhere, lots of stickiness, no money.
Yeah,
so
but
where's the monetization?
It's how you ask about the money, right? So always follow the money. So TV Everywhere is basically directly related to what I can give the cable operator. So the cable operator give me the appropriate sub rate for my channel. So it has nothing necessarily to do with the success of TV Everywhere. It would be nice if it was successful, but it basically allows us for me to go back and get a sub rate every 2 to 4 years, a higher sub rate, because I'm providing the cable operator my content in a different sort of place where they can ingest it and enjoy it, and that's where the money is. Now, on the advertising side, it's at the bottom, right? So I got TV, desktop, mobile, and now I got this sort of second screen experience. Now, because I can fulfill all 4 of those deliverables, this is a nice gold, shiny object that they like. So that's where I sort of need this to close the big deal. So that's where I'm seeing the money, both from the cable operators and to close those larger ad deals.
So your apps
Guys,
specifically.
I apologize, but the bell's about to ring here. I want to give everybody a 15-seconder. I'm going to start with you, Alan, put you on the spot. 15-seconder takeaway for the audience and something about social TV they should be thinking when they walk out of this room.
It's actually going to take off of your question. Where I see really the value where the money is in navigation and being able to identify new programming elements that will create a new community that will drive advertising numbers. And if that's in a second screen component, fantastic. But it's really finding new programming, giving exchange within that community of whether they like, not likes or dislikes, but whether they enjoy the programming, and being able to drive interest, which gives the advertiser a direct feed into targeting that.
Content, discovery, and community.
Bingo.
Agreed. Nice. synopsis. I think similar to the newspaper industry and the music industry, TV's evolving, and I think the biggest question to ask yourselves at the end of the day is what makes a show social? And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if Blake Lively from Gossip Girl has a bajillion followers, it's not going to make the show awesome. So you've got to create awesome content that facilitates social connections. That's what I would say.
Great.
Yeah.
And by the way, I don't know if what's happening in newspapers is called evolving, but that's a different word.
Oh. Well, good point.
It's
the New York Times.
It's our job, your job, to know your audience. And the best way to do that is by social interacting and creating content that allow you to do that. There's 3 companies that we work called Bluefin, which is very similar to they want to be the Nielsen of social. They'll basically look at your TV show, see where it's most active. You need information. You need data. So when that advertiser does come in, at least you can share them that morsel of information besides the rating point that'll make you different than, say, someone else who wants that same money.
And by the way, one last thought to share is when I talk to people on the TV ad side, there's an interesting comment that has a lot to do with thinking about the TV, where the real money in TV flows, is that they say that 50 cents of every dollar spent on TV advertising is thrown out. Just nobody's sure which 50 cents. So I'm not sure where the data fits into all that, because it's certainly not going to help with that statement. But thanks to a great panel, and thanks for being a good audience. Good job, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.